Hello, welcome back to Hunter Tuned. Today we're going to be working on a Honda Del Sol that got dropped off the other day, and we have to go over some things on this car. It actually came in for a tune, and it ended up needing a little bit more than just that. So this is the car that we are going to be working on. So this car has a B16A JDM B16 engine with a pretty much eBay turbo kit. It has an XS power manifold here. XS power. It's actually a pretty thick manifold. Usually these like cheaper eBay ones are kind of junk, but this one actually seems to be pretty decent quality. Ram horn manifold with a Speed Daddy 44 millimeter wastegate on it, and then just like an eBay turbo, like the 50 trim, you know, run-of-the-mill deal. Now this car is also running on a set of stock fuel injectors at the moment. We have to get the injector swapped over to something a little bit bigger so we can actually have enough fuel for boost. But moral of the story is this thing got dropped off, and I think it actually has a slight rod knock. And I kind of warned the customer, you know, ahead of time while he dropped it off. It's not very bad of a rod knock, but it still is noticeable enough that, you know, it might ruin our day coming soon. But we're going to try to see what we can do with this thing and maybe make it run a little bit better. It does need a tune and some idle tuning for sure, because the current setup that is in here, it kind of idles all over the place. It doesn't idle consistently, and the guy actually, you know, went into the throttle body and JB welded one of the ports shut from the idle air control valve. But that did not fix the idle issue. It's actually coming from the fast idle valve, which is typical on these things. If you have a fast idle valve on the Hondas, which is the valve that sits right below underneath the throttle body there, and it has the coolant lines running to it, there's a little cap on the end of them that I can take off, and I'll show you here in a second, just to screw them in. And that usually solves most of the idle issues on these things. The customer also did state that he is running a 5W20 oil. Most of the time they like running something thicker, like a 1540 or a 2050. That's usually what I recommend to people that have like a car they're gonna beat the shit out of. So if you guys can't tell, I did actually change up my camera stuff once again, and I'm hoping that this camera is actually going to be one of the last ones I need, because this one is the new GoPro Hero 7 Black Edition, and I have a Rode external microphone on it as well. I actually have a pretty slick setup that I'm using right now, and I really enjoy it so far, and I really hope that you guys enjoy the new footage that is coming out with this video, and hopefully videos to come. I mean, we can just get such a better shot and crisper image with this camera compared to even the one I just got. The one I just got is probably going to be mainly used for track stuff, because it's a more focused lens, or if I need to do close-up shots and stuff like that, I'll use that camera. But for the most of the stuff I do, I'm just sitting here blabbing to you guys, and I think this camera is going to be perfect for that. So first things first is I'm going to try to just maybe warm this thing up and give it an oil change and drain the oil out of it and kind of see if we can see any flakes in the oil. I honestly haven't even checked the oil on this thing since it came in. Maybe it's just like out, but it does appear that it does have oil in it. And this guy actually does have an oil pressure gauge in this thing as well. And on a cold start, it was running like 75 pounds of oil pressure at idle, which is good. Usually when the bearings are completely shit, it won't last, or it won't make 75 pounds of oil pressure even when cold. Check engine light that we need to address as well. But as you guys can see, almost 80 pounds of oil pressure on a cold start. But first things first is I'm just going to do something simple and maybe just check the valve lash. It does sound like rod knock to me, but just to be 100% sure, I'm actually just going to pull the valve cover quick and check to see if the valve lash is good or not, because the guy did say that he wasn't sure on the valve lash. So I'll pick up when I get the valve cover off of this thing and we'll double check the valve lash quick. Alright guys, so picking up on the Honda Del Sol here, I actually let the car run for a little while just to see if that rod knock would get any worse or better, or what the oil pressure would do, because like I said, typically when you have a rod knock on something like this, it may have good oil pressure still, but when it's hot, it's really going to suffer when the oil thins out and all that. But funny enough, I pulled the valve cover off of this thing, and one of the cylinders here was, the valve lash was really loose. So I got that set. All the other ones were set. So the valve lash is completely done. And I fired it back up just to kind of see if, you know, the noise got better or went away. And sure shit, one of them rockers was just loose. It sounded just like a rod knock to me. I swear, guys. It really did sound like a lower end knock. And I kind of assumed it was a lower end knock because it has one of these crank pulleys on it. One of the single, you know, racing lightweight crank pulleys, which I hate running. And I don't recommend anyone who runs. But it does have one of those, and I just kind of put two and two together when the guy was here and was like, hey, seems like a rod knock. But nonetheless, the car does actually seem to be doing okay, and the motor does sound quiet now, other than the high idle. And I did notice right away, just a little bit, I ran the car, you can see there is actually some oil sitting on the ground. So we do have an oil leak coming from the turbo. And they had this fitting, so this is the feed line coming off of the turbo, or going to the turbo, and they had a fitting screwed into the middle section of this eBay turbo. This fitting right here is a Garrett 7/16 to 24 or whatever fitting that we run on the VS Racing turbos that I sell on my website, huntertune.com. That's what this fitting is. This is actually meant for a Garrett style fitting, and you can see that the threads are actually a little goobered on this fitting. And this fitting was not tight, and there's no sealant on it at all. But these eBay turbos actually prefer a one of these like plate style fittings, and I actually had one laying around, so I'm just going to be throwing this guy on with a gasket and have a proper oil feed set up on this thing so it quits leaking. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm just chucking on this feed fitting, and then we will get the car up and running once again and work on getting this idle situation figured out. And also, I did notice I would rev the car up and it was super lazy. Like, it did not want to rev up at all, and it seems like the timing is very retarded. So you can actually see the distributor's actually maxed out all the way retarded right now. Sorry, I have this light glaring in your face right now. Hopefully this is a little better. So the distributor is all the way towards the front of the car, which means that it is retarded, and it just revs up really lazy. Like, the timing is off. So we're gonna have to get a timing light on this thing. I already did verify that the timing on the belt was good, so that's a-okay. Just working through some bugs and getting this thing up and running good. Hopefully save this guy some money, because honestly we were already planning on doing a full bottom end rebuild on this car. But if we can avoid that at all cost, hell yeah, we're gonna do that. And I'm not somebody to just take advantage of nobody and you know, just say it still was knocking. You know, it was my mistake, honestly. I really figured it was, and you guys could probably hear it in the video. It did sound like a rod knock, and like I said, I was just kind of putting two and two together and gave the guy worst case scenario kind of thing. So, but I like helping people out just as much as people like getting helped. So you know, I've been in these positions 100 times, and I just really like to have people enjoy the good side of cars and not the headache side of cars. Honestly, a lot of people get out of cars and they get out of racing and stuff like that because stuff like this happens, and you know, they can't figure it out and they don't have the drive and willpower to just push and push and push like some of us do. So I know I have that ambition because I was actually lucky enough to have a really couple good cars right when I first started doing this that kept me into the sport. But yeah, let's get this thing back together and fired up. All right, guys, a couple more updates on the Del Sol here. I did actually take the throttle body off of it to try to get this idle issue figured out, and did find some issues. Number one being, after I got the throttle body removed from the intake manifold, I did see that there is no stop screw for the throttle blade for the idle adjustment. So what the throttle is doing is the throttle is actually just getting stuck at way too far of a position, like too closed. You see how hard that was for me to get open? That's because the throttle blade is actually shutting too far. That's why you have this little stop screw that goes in the throttle body to hold the blade open just a slight bit so you are able to set your idle. That's why, like, if you have like a Honda with like a, you know, when you first hit the gas pedal, it's really hard to push, just right at the tip of the pedal. That's usually what it is there's no stop screw, or the idle is just not set properly with the set screw, which is how I usually prefer to set the idle on pretty much all Hondas. Is I turn the idle air control off, and I turn off the fast idle, or I shut the fast idle valve, and I set the idle manually with the stop screw on the throttle butterfly, which in turn changes the position of the blade, the throttle blade. So another thing that we did do is we got the fast idle valve removed from the intake manifold down here. Let me turn on my GoPro light. Oh, look at that. So we removed the throttle, or the fast idle, from the intake here, and there's just a cap that sits over the top of this with two 8mm screws, and then it has this little cap right here. So we removed the 3 bolts that hold it there, and then the 2 bolts on the top there, and you can see, hopefully you can see, there is a little thing that you can turn in or out. So this guy, what I usually do is I take like a snap ring pliers or something like this, or like a needle nose. Like I used to have a needle nose that was like all shaved down, and I did it with that, but I lost that tool. So I'm just using like this old snap ring pliers here. And pretty much you just want to take the snap ring pliers and put it in there, and then use the snap ring pliers to turn it clockwise until it stops. That means that the fast idle will be all the way shut. So I did that off camera as I just turned this little white piece, the little plastic piece inside of there. You turn it clockwise until it's all the way seated down. That way you won't have any anything coming, you won't have any additional air coming in from the fast idle, so you can set your idle up here like I was saying before on the actual throttle body. So now I'm actually going to be running to the store. I'm just going to run to the hardware store quick, and I'm going to get a set screw for here. I don't exactly know what thread pitch this is. I'm assuming it's probably like M5. It's pretty small, but I'm just going to get a little bolt and a jam nut so I can actually be able to set the idle on this throttle body. And then we will probably just put some gasket maker on here because I don't have an actual gasket. We'll gasket make some of this stuff back on. And I also removed some JB weld that was blocking the idle air control down in here. You can still see some of it just kind of pulling out of here. He had this port actually blocked off with JB weld. So I got all the JB weld removed from there. And like I said, this thing should idle like $1,000,000 after I'm done with it. As you guys can see, I actually got the bolt and a nut into the the stock location to adjust the butterfly. Just got back from the store, and it is an M5x8 thread pitch, I believe, is what fit the best. So now when we open the throttle, it's nice and smooth and it isn't binding up. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put everything back together, and I'm going to leave the jam nut loose so I can adjust the idle manually, And then once the idle is set, I'll tighten the jam nut back up, and we'll be all good to go. So I have to finish up just gasketing this stuff here, as well as getting the fast idle and all that stuff bolted back on and hooking the coolant lines back up. Yeah, I'll pick up when I finish up doing that stuff. I'm digging this new camera. I hope you guys are too. This thing's purring now. It's got a good idle, around 800, and yeah, now all we have to do is get a couple other little things tidied up. We got all the oil lines situated, we have the idle figured out, we fixed the throttle body screw. Now we got to give this thing some fuel. It is currently running on some stock injectors, and I'm actually going to be throwing in a set of decapped Hunter Tune injectors, and then after we get the injectors in, we will be tuning this car, hopefully making good power and not having issues. So we're going to be taking it easy on this thing just in case if that rod knock that I did here comes back, but it honestly does not seem to be knocking anymore, and that very well could have been just that really loose rod just giving me false impressions of a rod knock. So we're gonna pick up on this thing tomorrow. It's already getting kind of late tonight. But man, this thing runs really smooth now. I'm actually pretty happy with it. Only takes a couple hours with Hunter Tune to get these things running pretty good. I'm very happy that I can get these hot rods running. You guys may have wondered what the hell this thing is that's in the shop. You have not seen this yet, and I have not made a video on it yet, but you may see that the CRV is gone. The CRV sold. I no longer own it, and it just kind of wasn't my style. I like cars better than SUVs, to be honest. That thing was cool and all, and whatnot, but it just didn't really tickle my fancy, if you know what I mean. So I ended up picking up my first K-Series car. So this is a 2007 Honda Civic Si. It is currently dirty because T-Bag, when he left the other day, he did a donut and it flung a bunch of mud on the car. Thanks, T-Bag. But yeah, I got a really good deal on this car, and I could not pass it up. It's an 07 Civic Si. I'll do a full video on this thing if you guys want to, but it's probably just going to be a daily for me. And yeah, but it is like super nice car. 105,000 miles on it. 105K on the odometer. Has some goodies on it, but it does need a few things as well. So this car was a rebuilt title, which doesn't really bother me as long as the car is fixed and good now. It doesn't really bother me a whole lot, but it does hurt the resale value nonetheless, but it also makes the car a lot cheaper when you go to buy it yourself. So like I said, this was the cheapest way for me to get into a K-Series car of my own, and I'm very happy with my purchase, and the car drives pretty good other than it needing an alignment, and it has like TN full body coilovers on it, which I'm not about the low life, but I may try to either trade the TN coils for a set of stock suspension plus cash, or maybe just sell them outright if I end up buying different suspension, you know, just stock stuff. That's what I would probably put on this car, just for it to be a daily. But I think the only other issue with the car is it being low like that, the tires are all shot, like they're completely shot. And the alignment is like totally messed up in the rear. So when you hit like a little patch of snow or something on the road, it ends up like kicking the car sideways and kicking it left and right. And it just doesn't track straight going down the road. Like the rear toe is off and camber. And I'm sure the front tow and camber is off too, because I don't know if this guy got this car aligned when he lowered it, which you should always align your vehicles if you ever change a ride height on them. But if it wasn't touched alignment wise, I should technically be able to just throw stock suspension back in it and be good to go. So that's kind of my goal with this thing, is just do that. And then we may be doing a few secret tuning upgrades to this thing. I may introduce you guys to the K-Series world of Honda Tuning Suite. So I am leaning towards doing that instead of doing a Flash Pro, but I want to see what this thing can do all motor first, and then possibly maybe later on in the future we could possibly do a turbo K-Series as well. So this is one of the better K-Series. It's a K20 Z3, I believe, and it screams pretty good already, but with a tune these things really wake up, and I can't wait to play with it and get it on the rollers. So but anyways, that's probably going to do it for today, guys. I really hope you enjoy the new camera. If you do, smash the like button, and like, comment, subscribe if you guys haven't already. I do have some more Honda parts laying around if anybody needs anything. I got a set of cams that I'm probably not going to use. I bought them on a whim, but I don't think I'm going to be using them. But if anybody needs a set of Skunk 2, I think they're Tuner 2 cams. Like I said, I kind of bought them on a whim, but I don't really think I'm going to need them or use them. So there's Skunk 2, Tuner 2 with like Skunk 2 Pro Series cam gears as well. And then I have a full valve train too. I don't know if I might keep the head with the valve train. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do with that stuff yet, but it's a full Skunk 2 valve train in that cylinder head as well. And then I picked up a GSR block that has some damage to it. I literally bought it because it has head studs and it was cheap. So I don't know what I'm going to do with all this stuff yet, but if somebody wants to maybe offer me something for some of it, I may try to clutter up some stuff here so we can have some more space and funds available for doing other stuff. So yeah. Also, I want to get tuning more on the purple car. I was actually going to do that more today, but I did not. But I really do want to turn that thing up and max out my flex style injectors and show you guys exactly how much power you can make on a set of my injectors. I think that'd be a cool little video. And then if anybody has like I was thinking maybe doing like a dual injector setup on this as well, and just running 8 Hunter tuned injectors in here, because that would kind of be really cool to try, but I don't really want to do another fuel rail and do all the lines and stuff like that. So I'm kind of undecided on what I'm going to do with that stuff still. But anyways, I'm done rambling. Like I said, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. It was helpful. Whatever. Have a great night and a better tomorrow. We'll see you later.